Welcome, dear friends, to Cardiac Radio at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls with the spirit of truth, Spiritist Practitioner edition. We are studying the book, The Spirit of Truth, which was published in 1961, 6 years ago, psychographed by two mediums, Waldo, Vieira, and Chico Xavier in Brazil, and finally here together released the book, the translation, for all of us, thanks to the efforts of a team on the behind the scenes at Cardiac Radio. And today we're going to talk about the use of word and the consequences of slander. We're living at a time of misinformation. We're living at a time in which people create misinformation out of nothing. Like, for example, when people talk about vaccination, the theories of conspiracy, the people who don't understand science, they think they do, they don't. And they create a lot of slander, even about people who are billionaires, the big pharma. So bad. And are there consequences? We'll see today. A spirit that we don't know of, but named Julio, joined together with the spirits, Emílio, André Luiz, Bezerra de Menezes, Professor Eurípides Barçanufo, and many others, and comes to us to talk about the consequences of slander. We need to know that fake news, slander, has consequences. And this was inspired in item 7 of chapter 8 of the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. Chapter 8 is Blessed are the Pure of Heart. Do you remember a passage of Jesus as reported in Matthew chapter 15, item 1 to 12, verses 1 to 20, in which the scribe and the Pharisees came to Jerusalem, approached Jesus, and said, "Why do your disciples don't wash their hands before they eat, violating the tradition of our people?" And Jesus responded, "Why do yourselves violate the commandments of God in order to follow your tradition? Although God gave this commandment, honor your father and mother, and this one, he who speaks outrageous words to his father or mother is to be put to death, you have said, anyone who had said to his father or mother, every offering that I make to God is useful to you and fulfills the law, even if afterward he neither honors nor helps his father or mother, thus you have made God's commandment useless for the sake of your tradition." And he goes on and on saying that people are hypocrites when they preach so many things and they do the opposite, and they slander people. Julio today is going to tell his own account. It's a story of a man who said that he reincarnated, and this is his story. He reincarnated, and he was brought to tell us this story through a mediumistic meeting at Chico Xavier's time. And he says, "I was brought to your place of prayer and fraternity," and that's a Spiritist center. A Spiritist center is a place of prayer and fraternity, "by benefactors and friends, so that I may tell you my story. A bitter lesson," he said, "to the frivolous of the ear and the reckless of the tongue." So here we have it. How are we doing with our words? Are we good at managing the power of our words, or are we inconsequential We speak whatever we like, whenever we like, the way we like, and we don't care about what people say. We need to teach our children that it takes emotional awareness to understand the consequences. These are social emotional skills. It's important to learn so we can practice at home. We can't be emotionally aware of people's needs if at home we don't practice it. So, are we frivolous in terms of what we hear? Anything people say, we're like, oh, really? Or we are the ones who are saying stuff without consequences. He says, without any verbal ornament of any kind, in my painful confession, I proceed directly to my sad case, like a madman who returns to his senses after having shipwrecked in the vileness of a swamp. A few years ago, on my last reincarnation on earth, I was a man of simple habits. In my early 30s, I married a woman named Marina, but she was much younger than I, and we were exalted in happiness. We built a home in a small house in a busy neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We had a modest life. There was like a song of bliss in between prayers and hopes. But I was usually suspicious and restless. I loved my life with sickly passion. Marina was very young, almost a girl, but she was very outgoing. She liked parties, movie theaters, social life, laughing, and she had like a childish temperament. And easily people started bad mouthing her and creating problems in our relationship. People saying this and that. If we took a bus, we were immediately object of frightening looks, people whispering as reminding our names. If we passed by a public square, people would look at us and followed us with discreet whistles, dark messages, unexpected phone calls, anonymous letters, and a family advice started for me, gathering various accusations. People used to say, oh, Julio, Marina no longer is faithful to home commitments. She was ungrateful, unfaithful. She breathed in a mud puddle. She no longer is faithful to you. Even my mother, he said, zealous of our name, called to my senses, telling about the things. Friends whispered, even jokes. Huge struggles of feeling started getting inside of me and desperate conflicts. No more spontaneous joy at home. In vain, my companion declared herself innocent, alerting my heart. However, dense darkness possessed my reasoning, inducing me to create horrendous pictures of non-existent thoughts. If I had been pure, I was, as if I had been pure, I was demanding purity from my wife, as if I were a saint. I was claiming holiness from her. What deplorable human blindness. That's how, in an unforgettable afternoon, for the remorse that scourged me, the phone rang. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Somebody told my tormented brain, that a stranger was in my bedroom at home. Quickly, I grabbed a gun and went back to my home. Without any sound, very silently, I entered my bedroom, and I was quickly in despair. I saw Marina bent over beside a man who was also bending down 2 steps from our bed. I had no doubt. I shot them both in agony. I saw their blood mix while looking at me with immense anguish. And because I could not on my own resist such misfortune, I shattered my skull with an accurate bullet, falling right after to wake up in a tomb clung to my body, gaunt, smelly, which served as fattening to hungry worms. I tried in vain to free myself from the mud that enclosed me in the shadow. I heard ironic laughters from unhappy spirits that surrounded me in prison, describing my sentence in an impossible task. In the vocabulary of humanity, I couldn't find strength to paint what I was going through. For a long time, I bittered my chalice of affliction and dread until friendly hands finally took me away from the mud prison. Then I came to know that Marina was not guilty, and she was actually sacrificed by my mad hands. Selfless and innocent wife she was. She simply had asked a neighborhood fellow to fix a malfunctioning electrical outlet in our room so she could iron the clothes that I needed for the next day. Feeling embarrassed and disgusted about myself, before begging forgiveness for my poor victims, I implored, very humbled, for an expiation that awaits for me. And this is how, speaking to the careless souls who cultivate the vice of slander on earth, I come to tell you, in the position of the culprit, that to cure my own folly, I begged the Heavenly Father that I was granted the blessing of half a century of illness and martyrdom, struggle and flogging in the pain of a blind body. Julio, what is this to do, right, with the Spiritist practitioner? Well, with human beings in general, but especially for Spiritists. We see that we very easily badmouth people, assume things we have no proof of, and start badmouthing and slandering left to right. Kardec, who is here in the picture just behind me in the background, is a reminder that he also went through the slandering of people. What are the consequences of slandering? In Julio's case, he saw something, but he was blind to see it. So he actually created a mental lesion. Our dear Emmanuel, in a book that is yet to be translated in English, as you know it, right? You know, it's getting there. Laws of Love, Questions and Answers. There's a beautiful part that talks about the spiritual causes of diseases, and there is a special question and answer about people who are speakers and who influence negatively people. Nowadays, we see people bad-mouthing politicians. Sometimes the family of a politician, a former politician, is bad-mouthing the current administration in our country or elsewhere. Are there consequences? Unfortunately, yes. Emmanuel says that the speakers, like we are, hosts, speakers in Spiritism, if they talk bad things about people, they create slander, they are going to ask in another life to go through the experiences of issues with their vocal cords or auditory issues. In Julio's case, his main case was like he didn't see them doing anything, but he misunderstood it. He didn't give a break. How many times do we do it? Look at Emmanuel when he was Publius Lentulus in the book 2000 years ago, the whole account. His wife was faithful, and Fulvia started slandering him, together with Sulpicius Tarquinius. And what happened? They convinced Publius of something that was not true. And Publius, instead of asking his wife, after all, you love her, right? You are with her. Why are you going to believe somebody else? He didn't. He spent 25 years despising her, humiliating her, putting her aside, treating her like a slave, not even allowing her to teach their daughter. And only after she discarnated, he realized his mistake. He was blind, so blind that he actually became blind at life. The main question for us today at Kardec Radio is this: the truth sets us free. If we want to be mentally balanced or balance ourselves mentally, because we are in this journey to balance ourselves, all of us on earth, there's nobody on earth who is fully balanced, some more than others, but we all have our issues, our personality disorders, different levels, different degrees, some form of mental imbalances, some graver than the others. But if we don't learn to face the truth and embrace it and handle it, we're going to have consequences. Mental lesions. Okay, so this is the expression that Emmanuel uses in a beautiful part of this chapter that I'm reading to you, when he says that, and I'm just going to get this mental lesion, just a second. I'm getting the information here for us because it just escaped, but I think it's a must that we revisit it. 1 second, let me just get this beautiful part of the chapter. Okay. Okay. He's going to say to us that we, whenever we make a mistake, we're going to create mental lesions. And those mental lesions will have consequences if we don't adjust. Consequences that will lead us to mental illness, he says, or death. But remember, after death, we still have to work on it. So we're talking today about a matter of health. Health. If we want to be healthy in immortality, we must embrace the truth and stop. Blessed are the pure of heart. And Jesus said, it's a problem, not what you put in the mouth, but what comes out of the mouth. There are people who have positions in the Spiritist movement and use those positions in organizations to badmouth people, to slander people. Let's rest assured there are consequences. Consequences because what we talk about people will come back to us. These are not my words. These are the Spirit of Truth words. Today, we're going to do a cleansing in our lives in the next 24 hours. You and I are being asked to go through an inner cleansing. We need to go through this cleansing of ourselves when we revisit how we're dealing with the truth. I'll say something more. When we study about illnesses, wellness, we in Spiritism, in this book, chapter 7, Leis de Amor, Laws of Love, which pretty soon we're going to share with you here at Kardec Radio, he talks about pathologies of the soul. And he says that when we keep resentments, hold grudges, when we are in despair, when we are in frictions and irritated, we create a crisis of the thought. This is exactly the words by Emmanuel, literally. Establishing mental lesions that will escalate in pathological processes of the body and the mind and the soul, that if they are not treated soon enough, they degenerate in mental illnesses, madness, and death. Look at Fulvia. She slandered people all her life. She was evil. How did she die? She had cancer and dementia. And she was poisoned, actually, at the very end by her daughter. A true Frankenstein that she created. And that's what happens to us right here in this life. But we still have time. We're here together. So today's cleansing day, we're cleansing. We're going to do a fasting. In 24 hours, we're going to practice dealing with the truth, not saying a lie. 24 hours. Somebody said, where were you? Don't say a lie. If you don't want to say where you were, don't create a story. Just say, oh, I was out of my house. Okay. You don't need to say. I remember a faculty at the University of Maryland who was my boss. What a man. He taught me this. He said, you don't need to tell people what you don't want to tell them. You can keep it for yourself. People can ask whatever question they want. And he was right. I was too young. When I came to this country, 25 years old, still so dreamy and youthful. Not that I no longer am, but much more at that time. And so much more ignorant of so many things. And he taught me that and much more. And I thank him for that. So emotionally speaking, socially speaking, we don't have to say whatever people want to know. But that doesn't mean we need to lie. Like Jesus, he couldn't tell everything we wanted to know. He even said to the disciples, one day I'll send you the promised consoler that will tell you things I cannot tell you now. So there are times we can say, but that doesn't mean Jesus lied. No, he is the way, the truth, and the life. He didn't lie. He didn't omit. He couldn't explain things that we couldn't understand then. He didn't say them. But we're not going to lie in 24 hours, hopefully, for the rest of our lives. But we're also going to cleanse our hearts from grudges, resentments, despair, frictions, and irritations. So we have a huge homework. Let's write it down. For those who are watching us, this is therapeutic for us, therapeutic conversations. This is not only chat, chat, chat. We're actually working together, right? So 24 hours of spiritual fasting. All right, that's what we're going to do. The Spirit of Truth is asking us. We are going to practice. What are we going to practice? We're going to practice, and here we are. We're going to practice embracing the truth with ease. All right, that's the exercise, embracing the truth with ease. And how are we going to do this? Number one, that's the recipe. Do not tell a lie. 2, read the heart of resentment, grudges, hold on. Grudges, despair, frictions, and irritations. This is what we're going to do together in the next 24 hours. It's an inner exercise. We're being asked by our dear spirit mentors at Cardiac Radio to exercise, embracing the truth with ease. Somebody calls and says, "Where were you?" And you don't want to say you were spree shopping, however we say it. Okay. You say, "Oh, I was buying something." You don't need to say everything. You say what you say, but you don't need to lie. "Oh, no, nothing. I was just sleeping." Not true. Because the lies that we create, our brain believes, and then we're confused. That's how we create mismatches. So we need to practice with Jesus as our guide and model, handling the truth. And whatever we kept in the heart, we need to read ourselves. You see, Julio was a jealous person. Jealousy blinded him. We need to rid ourselves of these vices, but mostly the ones that are going to create imbalances that will create a lot of problems. What people say, but what we think are two different things. We tend to think that only teenagers go through peer pressure. Here is Julio, a fully formed man believing in peer pressure, in what family members and everybody say. She is your wife. Either you believe her or don't. He's your husband. Believe him or not. We need, first and foremost, to accept handling the truth. It's up to you. It's up to you what we're going to do. But we would say, how about if we join together in this beautiful task force? We're learning today that the consequences of slander are not beautiful. It could be in this life or in the next life. We're going to see in all the Spiritist books, time and again, Andre Lewis, Emmanuel, and many others repeat to us, like Julio, he is going to reincarnate and spend 50 years blind because he didn't have enough self-awareness, self-control. He was blind. Are we blind? Are we open to the truth and embracing the truth? You know, a true thermometer is this. People who have an easy time with the truth, you tell them about difficult stuff, tragedies, etc., and they are not easily affected. When they only want fun and entertainment, etc., they are having a hard time dealing with the truth because they want Disneyland all day long. They're still in the fantasy world. There are many adults who are like this. They cannot go to a family meeting or have dinner together without drinking, without poisoning themselves with smoking, drinking, or even spending a day without seeing pornography. Can't handle the truth, have to escape. We need to stop escaping because there's no escape. We need to seek the good. Seeking the good approximates us from the truth because the good comes from God. The truth is emanated by God. It's a deep exercise, especially for Spiritist practitioners, because when we are in our relationship in the center, the bad spirits play exactly this role. They play this role. They come and whisper in your ears things that are not true about the team that you're working with. They say, look at that person. And they make you believe until you leave your position, your work, the center, and you're no longer there. And what happens? Jesus cardiac in us. When we stop doing the good, for whatever reason, we are under obsession. So we need to learn how to be strong and not hear deaf ears for the spirits who come to tell us, sometimes family members, because you come home and they say, oh, do you like that person? I don't think they're a good person. So that person that is bad mouthing, and we are allowing that slander to take over. We're blind. Blindness as a consequence of not handling the truth well. In this case, we're not generalizing. So, friends, today you and I have an opportunity to rid ourselves of this difficulty and say, the truth comes from God. I accept it, I handle it because it's good. I am mature to accept it, seeking the good, always. Somebody spoke bad about somebody in the center in our Spiritist community. We say no. I prefer to believe in the good. It's, as Mother Teresa used to say in a beautiful prayer, it's always between God and them, God and us, not between them and us. I believe in the good of that person. I believe in the good. And if you are asking, but Vanessa, what about people who are fake? Well, Mother Teresa answered it all. It's the problem of others. In this book, let me see, Jesus in the Home, we read it today at the meeting of the Spiritist out of Virginia to finalize chapter 42, the message of compassion. Jesus' words about slander. It's the theme today, huh? In a world of misinformation, we need to know what to do with it and not to enter the trip. So there is a moment in which the disciples talk about slandering. John was concerned about the subject and asked, Lord, what are we supposed to do when slander shreds our hearts? Take pity on the slanderer and work for the good of all, because love undoes the darkness of evil, and work destroys disrespectful thoughts. So if people are slandering, it's their problem. But if we're slandering, it's our problem. And let's keep doing the work no matter what's happening and believing in the good, seeking the good. And when it's our turn, we don't pass misinformation. We don't tell lies. We handle the truth with ease, repeating to ourselves, I accept the truth with ease. I know the truth comes from God. The truth is good for me. Jesus is the truth. If we don't accept it, it's going to be very hard. The message today is deeply empowering. It talks about the consequences of slander. Let's meditate, empower ourselves, rid our hearts, fasting from these emotions that create disturbances, lesions of the mind, predisposing us to illnesses and death unnecessarily. Let us then prevent it and remedy it as soon as possible. What a proposal! We love it. Tomorrow we'll be back for the last chapter of the book, The Spirit of Truth, Spiritist Practitioner Edition. What happens next? You'll know tomorrow. We thank you for being with us. We hope to see you tomorrow, God willing.